you know, we got one take. I got to drive home from Walmart anyway, so we'll roll. And I already forgot my my tripod. Let me go get that. This is my new 1999 Infiniti I30 Touring. Now this car is giving me a chance to do something I've never done before. Usually when I get a car, I like to obsess over little details, make it look and drive a little better, and then see if I can make some money off the flip. Now, with this car, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to cut out all the time I spend working and investing and making it pretty and just try and flip it. Now, I've owned the car for about 24 hours, and in that time I've done a little bit of work in order to make it drivable and able to pass inspection, but for a large part I haven't touched it. I'm currently in it for $300, and the reason I'm sitting here in a Walmart parking lot around midnight is that I'm anticipating selling it tomorrow morning, which would make this a 48-hour flip. So if I can make a good amount of profit, you know, this might not be a bad thing. It does hurt me a little bit because this is a really cool car. It exceeded a lot of my expectations. It's actually really fun to drive. And I pretty much have to just let it go. But, you know, money's money, and I think it'll be cool nonetheless. And it's got some things I was not expecting on a 20-year-old car that was sold for $300. More of that coming soon. So, we'll start with a quick walk around of the car. Try to crank up the brightness. I know the video quality on this is not going to be great, but, you know, we're making do. You can see a little bit by the way the light shines off of areas like the roof and the rear. The paint is starting to fade a little bit, and it takes every ounce of me not to go through it with some compound and polish and make it look a lot better. But like I said, I'm trying to keep this cheap, and I'm trying to keep it quick. I'll get into some of the little details here and there later. I mean, the paint is not perfect. I mean, overall, the car really doesn't look too bad. It's got a cool, very dated look, but I like it. I mean, it does stand out. It's old enough to where, you know, you might look twice at it. And I've never actually driven one of these Maximas or Infinitis of this era either, so, you know, it was cool to see that, and it really did surprise me by how well it drives. I was impressed. And over here, we can see my excuse for a tripod because I can't afford one, so who knows? Maybe flipping this will give me enough money to get some decent camera equipment. The roof and hood are maybe a little faded, but not problematic. But as you can see back here, we have some clear coat starting to come up. Same story down here on the bumper. Let's see if we can focus in on that, but it is dark, so we're doing our best. One thing that is kind of cool is, so if that's at all visible, yeah, there we go. Grubbs Infiniti is still located in this area, and this is actually a solid metal license plate frame. It's probably came with the car when it was sold new, so I thought that was kind of neat. Planning to keep that little bit. We're gonna have a look at the interior, which was pretty rough when I got it. It's still not necessarily the best, but hey, I can live with it. You know, it's actually not that bad. I will say this were an absolute disaster, so about the only cosmetic thing I did to this car, aside from, you know, cleaning and detailing it, is getting these little seat covers. They were pretty cheap. I think they cost about $30. And they feel vaguely like leather. It's just like a vinyl material, like a leather substitute. But they match the interior, so I'm happy with it. I mean, the seats before were pretty darn unpleasant. I mean, you can see just the driver's seat was worse than this, but they're cracked, they're brittle. I mean, you can just peel that back. So this was a pretty decent improvement, and it was low cost. Aside from that, it does have a couple problems. Huge problem, clock doesn't work, so if you ever need to know the time and you're in this car, you will be clueless. In addition, this airbag light is on. Not too worried about that. You need to check your mirrors. You've got 1 and 2, but if you need your third, it's not there. And we also have a long crack the entire length of the windshield. Doesn't really bother me that much, but you know, I can't make this car perfect. And it's actually pretty nice as is. And you know, it's only fair to talk about the good too. I mean, the car is perfectly aligned. It is laser straight. I think this is pretty darn cool. It's got the original stereo with a cassette slot, no aux cable. I think it actually has a CD player too, which I'm kind of surprised by. The AC blows colder than any other car I've owned, which is really impressive considering this car's age. You know, I got a steering wheel cover. Actually, you might remember this from the Ford video. Yeah, I just put it on here. I got a nicer cover for the Ford, so this is comfortable, and you know, it's kind of a reminder that this is from the Ford. You know, aside from that, it's got a sunroof, which opens and closes sometimes, but I took it through a car wash and now it won't open anymore. But you know, at least it's stuck closed. In addition, you know, we got things like power locks, power windows. I mean, I don't have those on my Jeep. It's pretty darn cool. And here we get to the engine bay of the car. We've got a nice little 3.0 liter V6. I would back up on this camera view, but the hood shocks don't work, so I'm holding this open right now. It has a newer battery, which is nice. It starts up really well. These engines, you know, it's the same engine they had in the Nissan Maxima. I think it might have even been the same in the 300ZX. But they're notoriously reliable, and even going through the service records, it doesn't have any major engine work done. So this is the original drivetrain, original transmission, both with 263,000 miles and still going strong. So I was really impressed by that. The only bit of work I had to do is I put a new O2 sensor on it. That got rid of the check engine light, and other than that, it's been very well sorted. I've probably put about 50 miles or so on it, and you know, it's holding strong. No noises or anything like that. So I mean, that's as good as it's going to get. Now, we're not going to be able to get much in the way of a ride-along video because it is late and I am tired and I want to go home, but I figure we're driving home anyway. So I'll give you a little ride-along video. As you can see, the car is pretty quiet, and this is with the windows down as well. Suspension does make a fair bit of noise. You know, I figure it's an older car, and you know, it doesn't feel any different when it drives. It actually does drive pretty smooth. The suspension might be a little stiff. But we'll go ahead and switch to the forward camera. Got the AC going, windows down, sunroof open, except not because it doesn't open now. Hoping that dries out by the time I try and sell it. But you know, it drives. No check engine light either. So, I mean, that's more than I would expect out of a car this cheap. And it actually is smoother than I thought it would be. You know, like, I wasn't expecting much out of the way of this, but it does handle pretty well. Steering's pretty tight. Can't really see much, but his hair's blowing in my face. And we are going to get past Toyota to some of that, so just a little bit of insult. But, you know. Now we're going to get back on my home road. This road is private, so it does not have a speed limit. Wink. Just gonna do that for a sec. And now here's what surprised me too. So I'm doing 20. I'm gonna punch it. It is quick. Now I should specify too. It's not fast. You know, once you get up to about 80, you're inching up miles an hour, but especially from slower speeds, it has a remarkable amount of pickup. And that's at 264,000 miles on the original engine. I was not expecting that, but you know, it shifts smooth, it drives really well on the highway. So it's a cool car. The more I drive it, the more I actually like it, and that's the worst part, because I might not have this car in 12 hours, but you know what? I'm making the most of what I got, and it's been fun as is. So we'll see what happens. Now, in my opinion, one of the coolest things about this car is the papers it came from. So, naturally, you get the original Infiniti leather-bound service manual and associated papers. You've got the supplement to the actual owner's manual, which is right here, the I30. And then that covers that, I suppose, must have torn out. And then we have this little notepad and all these pockets for business cards and whatnot. I just thought that was pretty cool. It's always cool to see an older car like this with its original service manual. But more cool than that was this binder that the guy gave in with the trade-in as well. So this binder is actually from the original owner, and it has receipts for everything that's been done to this car, including, I don't know if I can show those, but all of the registrations, inspections, and whatnot. It's been inspected every year, but it's got every tiny detail, even down to
a handful of O'Reilly's various parts and stuff like that. But you know, alignments, new radiator, actually two alternators from two separate times, all sorts of cool paperwork. And you know, just to see this on a car like this, going through 4 different owners and each owner still holding on to this binder and keeping it updated is really cool to see. Now you can see a lot of this stuff just on the Carfax itself, but to actually have the original receipts, every little part and detail that's been poured into this car, I just think is really cool. And that shows that this car was well taken care of, and that's why it can go up to 260,000 miles. So, you know, I thought this was a really cool thing about this car. It's gonna make me miss it a lot more once it sells, but you know, I've had a good experience with it, and I guarantee someone else is gonna get some good use out of this car too. So, thanks, Infiniti.
I had posted the car on a couple different sites and apps and listed it for $1,200, and I ended up getting a lot of hits on it. A guy came the very next morning, and we went on a test drive. He liked the car a lot, and he ended up spending $1,100 cash, which I was absolutely thrilled with. I was in the car for, I think the total ended up being $343. So making that much profit on a car was really cool. It's a little disappointing that I couldn't do more to the car. I like being more hands-on and doing more work on the projects I have, but at the same time, flipping a car like this gives me more money to put into future projects. So, I was really happy with that. I've been in contact with the guy. The very next weekend, he came by and I put a mirror on his car, and he's been saying it's been driving perfectly. He hasn't run into any issues yet. So, I'm glad to see it's going to someone who's going to take care of it. It was a really fun little experiment to try flipping cars. I ended up yielding a pretty good profit too, which I was thrilled with. But yeah, it was a fun time. I'm glad I got the experience of driving this little Infiniti. I'm glad it's going to someone else that's going to get some good use out of it.